who are these used for? This is primarily for type 1s and type 2 diabetics, right?
Yes.
Okay. Get into that for me. Help me understand why this is relevant and how that's used for them.
Yeah. So they were originally approved currently they're only approved in type 1 and type 2 diabetics.
Okay.
And at this point, they're still not available over the counter.
You have to have a
prescription and kind of have to technically have to fall into this category in order to use them. Although it's easier to get them.
Most doctors are probably going to be happy to write you a script for that if you're a diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's just because it can't be argued how useful blood glucose monitoring in general and continuous monitoring, how useful that it's been for type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Because of that, now there's this push to say, okay, well, it's worked so well in helping those individuals manage their care. What about those that are maybe close to pre-diabetes or have pre-diabetes? Or what about just your everyday marathon runner? How can this be used in that population? It's tempting to want to extrapolate the information we take from a pathophysiologic state and apply that to, a general population, let's say.
Okay.
But in general, again, these devices that's who they were meant for, those with, dysregulation essentially of blood glucose and insulin.
Okay. So this doesn't, this is just measuring the levels in the blood. This doesn't impact insulin at all. It doesn't change the insulin levels in your body, right? That's a separate thing.
Exactly. So with the continuous monitor in and of itself, again, you're just getting that measurement of glucose in the interstitium reflective of what's happening in the bloodstream. Now, where the use of these have even gone further are those, especially with type 1 diabetes.
Okay.
And so there's something called a hybrid closed loop system.
Ooh.
And so all that really means is you have a continuous monitor and then you have a separate insulin pump. And so those two devices, they talk to one another, and whenever an individual's blood glucose falls out of range, it elicits a dose of insulin based upon where that level is. And so a lot of this medication management for an individual, which can be quite cumbersome, it can be difficult, can be hard to get completely right, over the long term. These closed loop systems have made life, a lot easier in those who require insulin use.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like the sort of the pinnacle of where we are with some of this.
Yeah.
Again, you have something that's continuously reading your blood glucose levels, and you have something that can detect where that is and then administer a dose of a medication that's helping you manage your condition. Like that's the fruit of all this research.
Right. And they talk to each other, and it's relatively hands off
for
those people, almost enabling them to live in the same way you or I would without, with a fully functioning pancreas.
Sure.
That I don't think about my blood sugar levels and tell my pancreas to excrete more insulin.
Exactly.
It just does it.
Right. And I like that you mentioned it in that way. It's not that we're saying that we know everything that goes on in the life of a type 1 or a type 2 diabetic.
Right.
That's not the point. It's just that when you think about pre-1999, before some of these devices exist, or maybe you were just using an insulin pump and you were still self-monitoring glucose with finger sticks and lancets and in a meter in a traditional sense, it's more or less highlighting how this continues to evolve. It's only going to get, it's really only going to continue to improve. Okay. Because now it's like, you don't even need meters. Sometimes it's the readings from either your continuous monitor or your, test strips or whatever, that information can often just be sent to an app on your smartphone at this point. So, you can see how a lot of this care has been so integrated into a normal daily life.